Hello, are you here to debate?
Yes, I am.
All right, what's your name, age, and pronouns?
My name is Jordan, and I just go by he. I guess him too. Can you hear
Oh,
me okay? You're on my new Bluetooth, by the way.
yeah, I can hear you just fine. Thank you for the $5 dono chat. Can I just get your age?
32.
You said 52?
No, 32.
32. Okay, Jordan,
Yeah.
32, he, him. Jordan, what topic did you want to debate about?
The other guy that you were talking to, I do agree with him that if you take from somebody, and they're not willing to do it, if they wouldn't give it to you otherwise, I do think that is a form of taking. And now whether or not that's moral or not can be debatable, but
Sure, let
anyways,
me let me ask you a
I
question
actually
in regard to like taxes and stuff. Let's say
sure.
we create a system in the United States where you can absolutely fully bow out of all taxes, but you have to also bow
Mm.
out of all public services those taxes pay for. Do you think people
I
would like
I would love.
realistically do this?
I mean, I would love to be able to keep my own social security money because I know how
Okay.
to invest.
How do you get to the
Um,
store?
I know. Well, I knew you were going to bring up infrastructure. I mean, I don't remember what infrastructure is, what percentage of our spending is infrastructure, but it's very minute.
Yeah, but
Um,
do
but
taxes
yeah,
do like taxes go to paying for, like, when I pay taxes to my county, does that pay for the roads that I drive on?
yeah, and I
Okay.
actually support more. What's the you know I actually support the idea that you have to pay more on the local level. I think
Sure.
that as you get closer and closer to the local level, you can decide with your feet whether or not you agree. We can't
I
do
think
that on the
a I
federal
think a
level.
conversation of fairness in taxes, like, hey, what are, like, I support a marginal tax rate. Like, I think the conversation of like what people should be paying, where that money should be going to, I think that's totally fine. But the idea that like you shouldn't be paying for these things that you use on the daily, I think is just nonsense, right?
Yeah,
Like,
well, of course, I agree with that, but the amount of money, like I'm estimating here that my yearly taxes. I just started a business. I estimate my yearly taxes to be about $30,000, and
mhm.
that's ridiculous. I'm talking about every bit of the money that the government's going to take from me, and I'm going to be paying like $10,000 in taxes just for fuel. But anyways, I mean, if you ask me, like, okay,
That's
am
true.
I getting $30,000 worth of value? Hell no, I'm not. I'm not even getting close to that. So I think to a certain extent, marginal tax rate and just taxes in general are way too damn high. They take way too much of my money, and we don't get nearly the value correct. And it's a form of taking. If I don't pay them, oh man, they're gonna go after my license, my business. They'll take everything from me, and they'll be happy to
Yeah, I
do
mean,
it.
I agree. I dislike Trump's tax code. I think Trump's tax code is not working for the average American, especially for small business owners.
Well, for me, it was a benefit because going from 35% federal tax rate to where we are now, 21%, I believe, and he's
Well,
even
you
talking
just
about
said you were
lowering
getting
it even
hit.
more.
You just said you were getting hit hard with your taxes.
I am getting hit hard, but it'd be even worse. It was worse before Trump
We've
because he
we've
lowered
been
the
under
business
Trump's
tax
tax
rate.
code since 2018.
Right, I know, and I'm referring to those tax cuts during the Tax Cut and Job Act. That's what lowered the taxes for me considerably.
But you're
So
saying that they're currently high now.
yeah, it should be even lower. I mean, I think $30,000 a year from one person running one business, working for himself, that's ridiculous. And Kamala Harris and the Democrats, they want more. They always want more. And the Republicans too. I'm not a fan of Republicans. I'm not a Democrat or Republican, but
Okay, but
everyone in the government seems to want more,
all I'm saying is,
more and more and more.
if your complaint, right? If your complaint is my taxes were too high,
Yeah.
your taxes were high because you're under Donald Trump's tax plan.
Well, yeah, that's true. He should lower it even more, and he is talking about it. So kudos
Not
to
for
him.
not for your
Yeah.
business, friend.
For small businesses, I heard him talk about lowering it to 21% to like 15%. I mean, every percentage drop helps, obviously, and not just me. The millions and millions of small businesses that are out there.
Incorrect.
Really? I mean, how? I mean, it's just. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, because
looking at the
he's
federal.
yeah. If you're looking at the thing,
Yeah.
he's not providing provisions for small business tax cuts. I haven't read those in the
He is
current
for me.
proposed GOP budget. I haven't read those anywhere.
Well, he wants to solidify them because those tax cuts that you referred to in 2018 are set to expire. And so if they do expire, if the Republican Party can't solidify them, it'll go back up to 35%. Trump has openly said he wants to prevent that from happening at all costs. So I appreciate that.
Wait, again.
But anyways,
sure, go ahead.
I have a question about the transgender thing. So I'm really on the fence when it comes to this topic, but a thought did occur to me. And just tell me what you think about this thinking, this thought process. So as a child, I was never allowed to grow up like thinking that Santa Claus was real. They didn't let me have that normal childhood experience. But I was thinking to myself, children are really suggestible. If the child trusts you, you can get them to believe in anything. And in my hypothetical scenario in my head, this is what I'm thinking, because I'm open to the possibility that by us affirming them, we're actually hurting them. I'm open to that possibility. And here's why I think that. If you were able, in my hypothetical scenario, get a child to believe that when he turns 16 or 15, whatever the age is, that he's going to magically turn into what his most favorite thing in the world is, an Abrams tank. And he can transform back and forth. If you got a child to truly believe that, and everyone was affirming that belief, and then I come along and say, no, that's not going to happen, in my scenario, I'd be causing that child a lot of pain. I'm not affirming what he really believes, what he really wants. But in my scenario, who's being more loving? The parents who are saying you can be whatever you want, you can be a boy, you can be a girl, are they the ones who are more loving, or is it, in my scenario, maybe the person who's trying to tell them the truth? Like, no,
it's the parents, 100%. Yeah.
But you see what I mean, though? Like, if a child truly believed that he can turn into his favorite thing in the world, an Abrams tank, in my scenario, I'd be causing a lot of pain if I tried convincing him otherwise. And so, I mean, in my mind, it's sort of similar because in my mind, men cannot become women and women cannot become men. I would affirm someone if they really believed that and I was going to hurt them by not doing it. If I said, hey, I don't believe this, I treated them like the gender they didn't want to be treated, I might be causing that person a lot of pain. I don't want to do that. But you see so.
Yeah, every time you tell a trans person, like a trans woman, for example, that she's not a woman, she's a man, that would be hurting them, yes.
Right. But I'm just open to the possibility that maybe you hurt them either way. Either way, you're hurting them. So I don't know.
No, but it actually does not hurt them to affirm their gender identity now.
Well, if in my hypothetical scenario, if that child existed and they thought they were going to turn into an Abrams tank when they hit puberty, I would be hurting them by saying,
yeah. A tank is an inanimate object. A gender identity is not an inanimate object.
The point is you can't change, in my opinion, an immutable characteristic. And whether or not you're a boy or a girl is immutable.
Gender is not an immutable characteristic. Gender has nothing to do with DNA.
Sex. Let's go with sex. I know that, to me, that word is a little bit of it's synonymous, but sex and gender.
Sure, but like scientifically and like biologically and sociologically, they are not synonymous.
Yeah, I gotcha. Well, I just wanted to get your opinion on, because like I said, this just occurred to me a few months ago, and I've just been letting it pop in my head every once in a while. Hey, are these people being hurt by us affirming them or telling them what I believe to be the truth is? It might be the case we're hurting them either way. I don't know.
We aren't.
That's my opinion, that it's possible.
Sure, we're not.
I know you don't think that. But in my mind, I'm not convinced that that's just the case. Oh, by affirming them, we are doing nothing but what's beneficial. I'm not really sure if that's the case. Just because their suicide rates are god-awfully high, and it stays high whether they get affirmation or not.
It does not actually. It drops significantly. Actually, I think it's like it's a 70% drop in suicidality when gender-affirming healthcare is provided. It's just that the suicide rate is still higher than the general population. And that's because
sadly.
Not by a lot after affirmation, but it's high because of family and societal stigmatization.
Yeah, see, I guess maybe I'm getting data from different sources because that's not what what people I've listened to. have told me. I've
Okay,
been
what
told
data
that
do
their
you have?
suicide rate. I don't have the data in front of me, but I remember listening to podcast after podcast of this whole transgender issue, just trying to catch myself up on it. And I've had them tell me that the suicide rates remain the same, whether they're being affirmed or not. So I don't know who's wrong in this scenario, them or you, but someone's got to be wrong.
It's them.
Okay.
I promise you.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, we all have our biases. It might be them. Yeah. So. But anyway, dude, that's the only thing I really wanted to pick your brain on is just, in my mind, with that hypothetical that I mentioned to you earlier, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, and it does have a little bit of a parallel. In my mind, it's immutable. Your sex cannot change. If you cut your body up,
your genotypic sex is immutable, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your genotypic sex, but like your phenotypic sex and your gender are both modifiable traits. Well, I might actually disagree that your gender is modifiable. Your gender, it seems to be that your gender identity is pretty consistent throughout life, but your phenotypic sex is 100% modifiable.
And that's a really new phenomenon, gender expression and all that stuff. We used to be the same. Sex and gender were synonymous. Now we're moving into where it's like, no, there's a difference. Sex is what your biologically is, and gender is more
even when looking at the etymology of the word sex and gender, they were never the same. They were always. It's just that people conflated sex and gender together, but that conflation was incorrect.
Well, I mean, that means that most of the country would have been incorrect if that's the case, because I think that was done to well, I mean, that's a little bit. I wouldn't use the word arrogant to say, oh, we were wrong. All of us were collectively wrong back in the day, but now we know. Now we know that there's a difference. I think that might be a little bit too presumptuous, but yeah, I mean, I have a sister who has my nephew, and she told me, like, I took him to a drag queen story hour. I wanted him to be able to explore his sexual identity and for him to discover whether or not he's a boy or a girl. And I love my sister and I love my nephew, but I vehemently disagreed with that. He knew he was a boy. Like, why
would taking him to drag queen story hour make him think he was a girl? Drag queens, the whole point of being a drag queen is you're a man.
Right. She wanted him to know that he can explore all these different things and all that, and I just wholeheartedly disagree with her. And I didn't even really talk to her about it too much. But I guess one of my point is that I know a lot of parents are doing this to their children, and I don't know. It's
but doing what? What is him going to a drag queen story hour do?
It wasn't just that. She wanted him to explore his sexual identity, but before he even hit puberty. And I think that alone is horrible. And
how old was he?
Drag queen story hour. He was about 8 o'clock.
Wait, you're telling me at 8 years old, she verbalized to you that the reason she was taking him here was to explore his sexuality?
That was just part of it. It was for him to know that there are things that are considered atypical, which is perfectly fine and acceptable. It's atypical for a person to be transgender in this society, although it's becoming more and more common. It's still very atypical. I think her ultimate goal was to just let her know that you can be whatever you want to be, as atypical as you want to be, and we're going to love and accept you. I think that was her ultimate goal. But
okay, but wait, that doesn't sound like she's trying to have him explore his sexuality. It sounds like she's just trying to teach him tolerance, which is like a good
thing. Yeah. You could say that, but I think drag queen story hour for children who are not confused and they think they know what a boy is, they think they know what a girl is, and you start introducing these concepts at really early age, I think it can be very confusing and damaging. I do. I think children need to have a foundation.
What is damaging about it?
I don't know, dude. Do you think it's healthy for young children to go to drag queen story hours where men are masked who get sexually gratified? I mean, it's called autogonophilia. They get sexually.
Drag queens don't have autogonophilia.
Drag queens though? That's like
they don't.
The definition of auto.
No, it's not.
Autogynephilia, to my mind, basically means a man who gets pleasure from being
Drag
perceived as a
queens
woman.
don't receive
That's
sexual pleasure from doing drag.
pleasure. I said pleasure, but in my
Autogynephilia is
opinion, it has.
specifically talking about. Wait, if this were like what? Autogynephilia is specifically talking about sexual gratification from cross dressing, basically. Drag you might get pleasure because you like to do this thing, but does that mean that like when Martin Lawrence did Big Mama's House 2, he was an autogynephiliac because he enjoys acting but was dressed as a woman? No, that's not what that is.
Not necessarily. I mean, straight male actors will act gay if the incentives are right. So it doesn't necessarily mean that's the case. I mean, it could be. I don't know the man, but so I doubt it.
Drag is just a costume. It's a costume. Now, some drag queens do come out later and it's like, oh hey, I realized that like this is my actual gender identity. That's fine. But drag is just a costume.
Yeah.
It's just a costume. It's just hyperly feminine costumes. And to have someone in a hyper feminine costume read to your kid is nothing. It's just them reading to kids.
Like I said, I just think it can be a little bit confusing for kids, and that confusion can be damaging when they're still trying to learn the world at such an early stage.
But what's confusing about it?
Well, imagine that was the child's first time seeing a man behaving in that way. They're like, hey, wait a minute, this isn't typical. Men don't normally act like that.
But that's why you teach. That's why you teach. Wait, are we saying that we shouldn't be teaching kids? Like, kids are going to see things all the time that they don't understand. Right? Actually, the other day, I was trying to explain to a child. Do you know what's more confusing than drag? Than saying, hey, kids, sometimes people who are men will dress up as women or vice versa. You know what's more confusing? Trying to explain to a child the concept of yesterday. They don't fucking understand what that means. They don't, like, yesterday, like, they don't know this shit.
No, yeah, I know. It's just, when you're a young child and you're starting to, I don't know what it's called. You're developing a baseline of what reality is to you. And I think that baseline has value. And I don't think it should be disrupted too frequently at such an early age. I mean, it'd be almost like having a child.
If the child's not, wait, do you think you can turn a straight child gay?
That's a good question. I don't think it's purely genetic, and I don't think it's purely environment. I think it's both. I think they've done twin studies and all these other things, and they've never discovered the gay gene. That doesn't exist, even though we've mapped our entire genome.
They've also never discovered any environmental reason that somebody is gay.
Yeah, but I think it's pretty strange how Hollywood people, you can look at all the Hollywood people adopting children, and the numbers of them that turn out to be gay or queer or whatever, it's astronomically high. And I'm like, that's probably not. What? You haven't heard that theory?
The reason why you probably notice more people in the spotlight are gay is because they're specifically in the spotlight. So like you would notice children of Hollywood actors because they're more in the spotlight. This is just a confirmation bias.
There's this one Hollywood actress. She has 3 children, I think, and all of them are transgender. And the odds of that happening purely on a genetic incident is astronomically high. It'd be like winning the lottery multiple times in a row for her to be that, whatever you want to consider it, lucky or unlucky. I'm not going to use that term to define it, but she's got all of her children are trans, all of them, and you're telling me that there's no environmental cause? I don't think that's true.
Yeah, you haven't provided any evidence to the contrary.
Well, I mean, I didn't come here prepared to with all the documents and all the facts. I wish I had, but I didn't. I can only give you what my intuition and what I've heard before, and give you like I said, I don't know what the numbers are, dude. But if I did a Google Grok AI search or whatever, and I try to figure out what percentage of Hollywood parents have queer and non-traditional gender-oriented children, I'm sure that number would be astronomically high, and I think there's a reason for that. And it's not genetic. But, I mean, I've seen twin studies. Oh, did I lose you?
No. Well, yeah, because you're not making any sense, but no, you're fine. No.
Well, I mean, we got just different opinions, dude. Hey, but before I let you go, though, just so we can find some sort of commonality, um, hmm, ah, nothing's coming to mind. I was maybe talk about video games or something with you a little bit. I always try to find some sort of commonality with people I disagree with, and I vehemently disagree with pretty much everything you said on this podcast. But you know, whatever. I can't. All right, man. Well, you have a good rest of your day. I can't think of anything else to talk about. So,
Okay.
unless you got questions for me.
Nope.
All right, man. Well, you have a good rest of your day, and I'll keep listening to you every once in a while. It's interesting to listen to people who have completely different views on everything I believe in. It's really, really.
Okay.
Sometimes it can be a little frustrating to listen to, but I think it's a good thing to step out of your comfort zone. All right, man.
Sure.
Take care. Bye.